Riddle me this, dear viewer. Have you ever encountered a zombie franchise? One that you thought was dead and buried, only for it to spring out at your face when you least expect it? These are the tales from the bargain bin! Hello, boils and ghouls. It's the return of your boy Skullsy with the story of another card game that just couldn't hack it. I mean, come on, seriously, when was the last time this guy covered an actual card game on his channel? Enough with the Warhammer stuff already. Anyway, as everybody knows, the best and only way to make your card game stand out is not with interesting mechanics, nor with eye-popping artwork, but the name. A catchy name is how you catch eyes. Sure wish I could catch a pair. But the world has grown bored of all of the magical word, the something titles, so be sure to give your game a name based on a fancy word, regardless of whether or not it actually makes sense. Words like synecdoche, limerick, Corinthian, geophysical fluid dynamics, argent. Don't cry for me, Argent Saga! The truth is I never played you. But anyway, today's pretentiously named game is one that suffered an almost immediate demise, becoming an obscure spot in card gaming history and super cheap on eBay. It's vile, it's wretched, it's OPHIDIAN 2350!
2003 was certainly a year. It was roughly the start of what I call the flood era of trading card games, where the 1-2 punch of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Caused the genre to be seen as an open field that can be exploited with licenses and cash grabs. Some of these worked out. 2003 was the year of the Naruto card game, which lasted a pretty long time, and the underappreciated Neopets card game, which had an interesting combination of action economy and victory points. But this was also the year of the Beyblade trading card game. I've riffed on this one before, where a card game that was more expensive than the collectible toys it was based on should probably have never made it out of R&D, but that's just how wide open the publishers saw this market. Into this scene comes a trio of recent college grads who, in their spare time, were developing their own trading card game, one which one of their college professors said was a real SpongeBob SquarePants idea. Yeah, that's an actual quote. It was a 5-year struggle though. After meeting with publisher after publisher, they finally found their fit with sports cards company Fleer. With everything in place, OPHIDIAN 2350 launched in August 2003 and assured that their game would last forever.
3 months. The game lasted 3 months.
Yep, before the year was even done, Fleer had pulled all of its stock and cancelled the game for good. There was a huge pile of unsold cards that was eventually found and dumped online for insanely cheap. There is a lot of sealed product in the wild, and it is still not uncommon to find these cards for as little as $3 per booster box. You could easily buy these things by the truckload, and it's how I have my perfect archive. Not exactly a playable master set, but one copy of every card released in booster form.
Still, getting more wasn't exactly hard considering everything I just said before.
So, what happened? Was this yet another case of a game lacking the punch to be anything more than dead on arrival? Well, the story, it seems, is a little more complicated. The official reasoning stated by Fleer for pulling the game was due to struggling sports card sales, something that would eventually bankrupt the company 2 years later.
But that explanation doesn't really pass the smell test, does it? I mean, pulling one completely finished product from store shelves because you're struggling with a different product doesn't really line up.
Well, according to the game's original devs, stated in a blog post on their website, there was another reason. A wizard did it. A wizard from the coast. You see, the creator of Magic the Gathering had filed a patent in the United States essentially claiming ownership over the idea of selling randomized game pieces. And when anybody else tried to make a trading card game, Wizards would slide into their mentions to be all like, hey, you need to pay us for that. It's why you see Wizards credited on games that they weren't publishing, and it took nothing less than the biggest entertainment brand of all time to tell Wizards, nah bro, you don't own the concept of a trading card. And OPHIDIAN was released while this legal battle was going on, making it a prime target for the company that was high on the vapors of lawsuits. Ophidian's designers actually thought they were in the clear patent-wise due to how differently their game was structured compared to Magic, but patents like this aren't exactly ones you make in good faith, but instead to try to squelch competition. They were gonna get sued regardless. So, when that cease and desist showed up, Fleer immediately folded. They did not even try to mount a legal defense, opting to instead go about pulling any stock they might have sent out and shutting Ophidian 2350 down for good. If this is true, it does kind of paint the rest of the picture. Fleer's comment makes a lot more sense when it says, "We are shutting down Ophidian 2350 due to our struggling sports card sales, which means we really can't afford a lawsuit right now." So, is this the reason Ophidian 2350 died? A litigious and opportunistic Wizards of the Coast taking aim at the wounded beast that was Fleer?
I don't think so. I mean, it's certainly the explanation given by the creators of Ophidian 2350, but I can't help but be nagged by the inescapable fact that, well, Fleer didn't think this was worth defending.
Ophidian 2350 is a gladiatorial combat game set in the grungy, grimy, grimdark of violent blood spectacle. It's all about sensuous content and ultra-violence, a real Blade Runner meets Mad Max sort of vibe,
and it's a terrible idea for a trading card game. Okay, I know I brought this up before in another video, but there's something that's just sort of inherent to trading card games that is hostile to this sort of design: the social experience.
I brought this up in my video specifically on art and layout, but you need to remember,
don't forget, you are asking people to play your game in public against complete strangers. That's literally what a tournament is.
the thing about trading card games is that the necessary collaborative public element sort of requires that the game's artwork and subject matter remain firmly in safe for work territory. I mean, sure, the teenagers might think all the gore and ladies are cool, until they're asked to show these cards to complete strangers, at which point they tend to recede back into the shadows. Trading card games, by their natures, need to maintain a sense of tact, and while this has resulted in some admittedly pretty silly, terrible, and pointless card editing, don't forget Cheshire Gate, the scandal faced by anime-themed game Force of Will over the existence of a single butt. In a world where broad appeal is the key to survival of a TCG, Ophidian's sexy, gory style, derived from the worst habits of the dark age of comic books, acted as a pair of cement shoes on the game's chances, regardless of how good the gameplay actually is. So, how is the gameplay? The gameplay of Ophidian 2350 involves players using squads of gladiators and a deck of various arsenal cards to try to defeat the gladiators of their opponent. A team is made up of gladiators whose level 1 forms add up to 10 VP. You can also have a gladiator deck with the higher level forms of those gladiators, along with one relief gladiator who comes into play if one of your gladiators gets defeated. Along with special abilities, gladiators also have disciplines. The goal is to accumulate the most VP by the end of the round, accomplished by knocking out your opponent's gladiators. There's also a crowd's favor win condition where, if you accumulate 15 cheer points, the fans watching will riot, rushing onto the field and tearing your opponent's limb from limb.
Yeah, it's that kind of rulebook. Which reminds me, they actually put out like this sort of in-character flash tutorial on how to play the game, and it was really weird. Like, it was all,
Hey, hey, hey! It's me, Freak Show! I am a dude who gets all the ladies. As you can see, I am currently dual-wielding right now. This is Jinx! Look at her sexy, sexy legs. She's my sister!
Yeah. The Arsenal deck contains the cards that go into your hand. These are a combination of effect cards, minions, and buffs which get played using a resource called credits. You get 10 credits each round, plus 1 more for each round it is, and these are used to play new cards or maintain the ones you already have in play. You also need a character with a minimum level and attribute logo to play the card. Some even require you to have several characters of the same type, though level doesn't matter for the additional characters. And I don't know. Not a lot of these cards seem particularly punchy, and I struggle to find good synergies. On one hand, you have a card that eradicates minions with the efficacy of Force of Will, and on the other hand, a lot of cards that reduce incoming damage by 1 just once. For each card that seems to have a brutally effective multi-purpose ability, there's maybe 5 that leave things up to your opponent to actually work properly, and you never want to give your opponent a choice. I mean, a card that lets an opponent choose between either losing 20% of their maximum life or giving you a 4/3 creature for a measly 1 mana is considered not too great in Magic, so imagine if there were a ton of cards that were just the lukewarm version of that. I mean, there are some combos, like a card that forces a gladiator to retreat and then another card which causes them to get hurt when they do so, but it's just a roundabout way of accomplishing something that can't be done more easily with just a single equip card. I didn't notice anything particularly explosive. There's some thematic cards that mention other cards in their text, but no real intuitive combos like you would see in a game like Pokemon. Also, the text is frequently messy, putting in parentheticals from time to clarify card text in ways that probably should have been written into the card itself. There's also a lot of weird terminology. Gladiator, minion, and character all mean different things, and don't get me started on all the different kinds of damage. You have A damage, but you also have D damage. Oh, but there's also R damage, and don't forget about X damage, and bio-decay damage? So, combat plays out with characters in either the action row or the support row. To attack, a character must advance to the action row and target an opposing character in either row. Set, or turn sideways, the attacking character to inflict A damage to the target. And I don't mean A damage as in 1 damage, I mean A damage as in... Now, the game moves by using something called flow. Basically, whoever has flow has priority, meaning they have the privilege to play cards or perform actions. Advancing, attacking, and playing cards with a plus symbol lets you keep the flow. Retreating or playing a card with the minus symbol causes you to lose the flow. The game's manual emphasizes that, saying you want to get that flow, gotta get that flow, grab that flow, flow with the flow.
Have none of these game designers ever heard of overextending yourself?
I mean, you could spend your turn just advancing and attacking with all of your gladiators, but at that point, your turn is kind of over and your opponent is fully loaded and ready to go. But there are some quirks to flow. Most Arsenal cards give up flow, some cards can be played even if you don't have flow, and there is a way for the aforementioned onslaught to be stymied, and that's with cheer. If a gladiator attacks a target that hasn't acted yet, they gain a cheer point. Unless another gladiator leaps in the way of the attack, in which case, they get the cheer point. You can then spend a cheer point to cause an action that keeps flow to instead lose flow.
So, did everybody get all that?
It seems like an interesting mechanic, one that is integral to the game. Remember, having 15 cheer is the alternative win condition, so you'd expect there to be all sorts of cards that manipulate and work with cheer, right? Well, no. Not one card in this 240 card set interacts directly with cheer. Some cards check for player with the most cheer, but no cards address it directly, neither through spending cheer as a cost, boosting the amount of cheer you have, or depriving cheer from your opponent. Yeah, the game's rules are a bit of a mess. It's my opinion that the game is too complicated for its own good. Really kinda sheds an interesting light on the rulebook's own comment about its length.
It's been my wry observation that the most successful trading card games are those with really simple and straightforward rules, where the complexity is generated by the cards instead. I see all of you side-eyeing Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. Don't forget, it started off a whole lot simpler.
So, at the end of the day, OPHIDIAN 2350 was a game with mediocre rules, built on a concept that was hostile to the trading card game environment. Sorry guys, Fleer is not solely responsible for the L on this one. But this isn't the end of the story. Like I said, there's all that liquidated stock to deal with. In came Hack and Slash Games, who bought up a ton of this liquidated inventory, cause crazy cheap, remember, and then went on to make a sequel series, OPHIDIAN 2360. Ooh! In this case, in the form of an expandable card game with set releases.
And I mean, I guess everything has a cult following, huh? There's probably a dedicated band of Redakai players out there somewhere that I don't care to meet, but honestly, Ophidian becoming an expandable card game is probably the best it could go for, and ECG is more designed to be something that a group of friends invest in, rather than a larger social community.
Though records on how successful it's been has been spotty. The hack and slash website updates really sporadically, no news has been posted for like 3 months, and their social media pages seem to be reserved only to announcing the Kickstarters they've backed. And now they're trying to turn it into an arenaverse, because everything has to be a verse these days, I guess. But yeah, it's clear this game has found its niche now, though its Icarian fall is still the stuff of legends.
So that's the story of Ophidian 2350, my ghoulies. The game may have been named after a serpent, but it wound up instead being an Ouroboros, biting its tail and becoming its own worst enemy. If it wasn't for the fact that it was a snake, I'd say it enjoyed the taste of defeat. So that's another game put to rest. There are many more just like it, maybe not as infamous, maybe more so, but you can bet that come next October, we will be looking into another one. Which one? We'll see, but until then, this is your boy Skullsy saying, Happy Hallow Scream! But wait, there's more!
Hatches are battened, sails are... they've seen better days. They said there wasn't a soul aboard, except for this skeleton clearly lying out on deck. Amazing detective who can identify this man without his head. So I was right, he was the purser, carrying his books around like a nerd. Nerd! Henry, you suck! Yep, job well done here! Oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear.